Hugo had been called to the Varixius Detention Centre by the warden for an emergency consultation regarding the first human inmate. He was especially confused as to what it was regarding, as he had heard the council system's judicial branch was incredibly well maintained, that any issue was unlikely. As the transport landed on the landing pad, Hugo could see the warden of the facility there to welcome him. He was a Dripsus, a strange race of semi-liquid beings that utilized mechanical suits to interact with, as they put it, stone beings. "Ah, Dr. Hugo, this one welcomes you," the warden said, holding out a cybernetic hand which Hugo took in his own. "Nice to meet you, Warden Blicky. Usi Veres Tekalian?" Hugo replied, trying his best to pronounce the warden's name, despite his human physiology making the attempt nigh impossible. "I appreciate the attempt to say my name, Dr. Hugo, but please just call me Warden and save both our dignities," he replied with a good-natured chuckle. "Thank you. I was always taught to at least attempt to say a name at least once, a sign of respect and all. I appreciate your consideration. Now I understand you are having some issues with your first human prisoner." "Yes," the warden said, nodding the glass dome that contained what appeared to be a brain and half a dozen eyes. "So, may I ask why I've been called?" "Yes, it is quite a strange situation indeed," the warden began, as he led the way to an auto train that was waiting to take them to a different part of the facility. "We understand you humans are a social species, so he was placed in the interaction wing of the prison." Hugo nodded, as he read the provided data slate that brought up the details of the prisoner. His name was Michael, and he was only in for petty theft. He was, if anything, lucky to be placed here and not in one of the human-run prisons. Supposedly he was meant to be a bridging placement, to act as a flagship for more humans to receive rehabilitation at the facility. "That is good," Hugo nodded, responding to the warden's explanation. "Isolation can lead to negative side effects. I can see he has been showing signs of serious mental instability. Can I ask how long he has been allowed to interact with other prisoners?" "Not at all yet. We were following our standard quarantine procedure, so he was to be isolated to his cell for 4 weeks. But he rapidly declined mentally, so we were reluctant to allow him access to the others before your assistance has been provided." Hugo nodded along as he read more of the file. It seemed he had become almost entirely broken, with even an event of attempted harm. While, yes, isolation was problematic, he was informed it was only temporary. As he pondered this, the auto train began to slow to a stop as they reached the section where he was being held. "Is there an observation window into his cell?" Hugo asked, to which the warden again bobbed his dome. "Yes, we were hoping a member of his species could help us identify what is happening. I am loath to allow even a single offender to suffer under my watch." "An admirable ideology. Shame most of my race struggled to hold to it," Hugo replied with a sigh, as they arrived at the cell for new arrivals, where Michael was still being held. The warden held his mechanical hand out, and a small key extended from the pointer finger. Plugging it into a corresponding slot, a shutter lifted up, revealing a window into the cell. Hugo had been told they used hidden windows to observe the prisoners. This was not what shocked him. What shocked him was the cell Michael was in. It was something he had only read case studies on. It was, if anything, a pitiable situation for the poor man, who was rocking back and forth in a restraint jacket after he had attempted to injure himself. "I can already identify the problem," Hugo said. "You can?" the warden said, surprised. "I cannot see any issues with the cell." "Yes, it is adequate for physical needs, but a thing with us humans is we require constant stimulation. What you have there," Hugo began, as he gestured to the room just beyond the glass, "is something we would use to torture someone." "Torture?" The warden seemed utterly shocked and dismayed at the revelation. "Yes, it is a thing called White Room torture," Hugo explained, as he again gestured to the cell. The entire room, from the bedding to the desks, every single thing in the room was snow white. "But it is a clinical color." "Indeed it is. But as I said, we humans require stimulation. In the past, certain states would lock dissidents into rooms like these, and the sheer lack of mental stimulation can cause the mind to implode upon itself." "Is that so?" the warden muttered, holding a hand onto the window in what Hugo could recognize as a sympathetic manner. "Yes. Nothing worse for a human to be trapped with our own thoughts. There was even a study where humans were left in a room with nothing to stimulate them, but a button that would electrocute them if they touched it." I assume the humans, in their desperation for stimulation, would press the button, then wallow as they could not press it a second time? The warden guessed. Well, they pressed it multiple times. The human need for stimulation is so bad we will even embrace pain just to get our fix. You make it seem like your race is addicted to such things, the warden replied with a chuckle. We very much are. I would suggest that future human prisoners have a variety of colours for their cells. Also, grant them access to at least an entertainment system of some kind. Would they not prefer meditation? That is part of the purpose of these spare rooms, after all. Hugo shook his head. No. We humans are fine with relaxing through meditation. But with nothing else, it would still have more negatives. Can we still help him? I feel awful to learn it is our facility that has left him like this. Some therapy and a few books or videos. Give him something to get his mind focused on, and it should hopefully help. I appreciate the help. I was worried he had some undiagnosed illness. I can only hope we rectify these issues before our second prisoner. As do I, Warden. As do I.